Hands up if you've ever watched an episode of Friends. Hands up if you've ever watched an episode of Friends. Oh, so we've got a few people that have never seen Friends. Oh, okay. Well, so my dad, 70 years old, and he has just restarted watching Friends all over again. So very much multi-generational Friends. But I'm sure most of you already know that not long ago, we had to say goodbye to this gentleman, Matthew Perry. Really, really tragic and really, really sad. As some of you will know, if you've heard a little bit of the story, he was a man who struggled an awful lot with alcohol and with drug abuse. And he found himself in many, many dark situations throughout his life. And about a year ago, I think it was, he released a memoir of his life called Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. And in the book, he opened up about an awful lot of different things that were going on in his life. But for many people, hands up who's read the book. Has anyone read the book, actually, out of interest? No? I bet you'll be buying a copy now. It'll be a collector's item. So, but for many people, the most surprising element of the book was Matthew Perry talking about how he had this faith in God. And most people were shocked because they thought, this doesn't look like a man. This is a man who struggles. This is a man who's gone through drug abuse and through alcohol abuse. But he was still saying about how his faith in God had come back to him and how it had really helped him. Apparently, he'd once prayed when he was younger, God, you can do whatever you want to me, just please make me famous. He later said that was one of the dumbest prayers he's ever prayed in his entire life. And towards what would end up being sadly the end of his life, he reflected that now all these years later, I'm certain that I got famous, so I would not waste my entire life trying to get famous. You have to get famous to know that it's not the answer, and nobody who is not famous will ever truly believe that. He also said this, and I found this really, really interesting, and I'm going to quote again from his book. He said, being in a kitchen always brings to mind God. He showed up in a kitchen, of course, and in doing so, saved my life. God is there for me now. It's hard to believe, given everything, that he still shows up for us mortals, but he does, and that's the point. Love always wins. I've seen God in my kitchen of all places, so I know there's something bigger than me, he says. I know it's an omnipresent love and acceptance that means that everything's going to be okay. I know, this hits harder when you know what's happened to him. I know something happens when you die. I know you move on to something truly wonderful. It's amazing, isn't it? Just how someone can reflect, just as even they're in their kitchen at home, on what life can be about and can have an amazing encounter with God, even in that space and even in that moment. And 2,000 years before Matthew Perry penned those words, before he shared this, God also met two more people in a kitchen. So Jesus was coming back from a place called Jerusalem, and he called in to visit some friends of his called Mary and Martha. And I'm just going to read a bit of their story. It's going to be up for you guys to read along on the screen as well, because this is what happened to Mary and to Martha. So as Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I am doing all of the work. Tell her to come and help me. Now, if we pause there at that point, I personally think that is a very fair request. I think that if my sibling was just sitting there not doing anything and I was doing all of the work, doing all of the cooking, I think I'd want a little bit of help. But listen to what Jesus says. But the Lord said to her, that's Jesus, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her." You see, what Jesus was saying was that actually the words that I am bringing give life. The food that you're going to serve will keep people from being hungry for a little while. But what I am offering is something that is going to bring life and life to the full. Jesus was saying that actually Martha was getting worried about things that seemed important to her, but actually didn't matter. Mary, on the other hand, knew what was important, and that was listening to Jesus. Now, I don't know what it is for you. For Martha, she was getting distracted with a dinner. For you, it could be anything. Maybe it's, you know what, I really need to look the best all the time. So fashion is that thing that's distracting me. Or maybe it's, you know what, I just need to get as much money as I can. Or maybe it's, I just need to get through the next day. Life is hard enough. I just want to get through this day. But Jesus said, and he says that to Martha, and he says that to each of us today, there is only one thing that is important, and that is knowing me and listening to what I've got to say. I believe that, and I'm not sure on this, but I believe that towards the end of his life, going back to Matthew Perry now, that he began to realize this himself, that there was one thing that was important. It was knowing God. And I just want to quote his book again, because this was the story of when he was able to get rid of his addiction. And he says this: "One fine day, God and my therapist got together and decided to miraculously remove my desire to take drugs, a desire that had been plaguing me since 1996. Hands up who was born before 1996. Most of you don't know, but that is a long time. My therapist said to me, the next time you think about Oxycontin, I want you to think about living out the rest of your days with a colostomy bag. If you don't know what that is, you don't want to know. God didn't say anything, but then he doesn't have to because he's God. But he was there, he says. The idea of being famous, the idea of being rich, the idea of being me, this is him speaking, I can't enjoy any of it unless I'm high, he said. And I can't think of love without wanting to be high. Ooh. It's okay. I lack a spherical connection that protects me from these feelings. He said, this is why I'm a seeker. This is what Matthew Perry said. Either way, I'm ready, and I seek the answer every day. I am a seeker. I seek God. As it was, I was never alone in that room once. That was God's love in human form made flesh. Now, I don't know where you guys are tonight. I don't know whether you've been thinking about Christianity for a while, whether you've never thought about it, or whether you're somewhere in between. But tonight I want to say to you that Jesus is saying the same thing that he said to Martha, that he said to Matthew Perry. I am all you need. That is the most important thing. And there is one person above all who's going to know you the best. Because he knows every atom of you. He knows how you're made. He knows what makes you tick. And that is God. Okay? So I just want to leave you with this song. We're just going to play this song now, which is one of my all-time favorites, which has these words at the end of it. And it says this: God only knows where to find you. God only knows how to break through. God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows. So we're going to watch this video clip now, and then we are going to go into our break. But if you want to know more about following Jesus, please do come see me, come see Chloe, come see Kieran, whoever you feel you want to come and talk to, because we would love to share with you how you can start this new journey with Jesus, and how you can meet this person who knows everything about you, this person that impacted Mary and Martha, this person that impacted Matthew Perry, and this person that is impacting people all around the world. So let's have a look.